Hey guys, Man here for another deck profile, and as you can see, I haven't really put out a deck profile in a while, but that's because I've been experimenting with a lot of decks, and the fact that the meta hasn't really shifted, especially with what I've posted in the last 2-3 weeks, there hasn't really been that many new decks. There have been like a few that have popped up, but not enough for me to like essentially like just start all basically building those decks, because also the fact is that I'm limited in cards. Specifically, I only got two boxes and like one of each of the starters, so I'm kind of like having to like kind of switch cards back and forth. So I usually try to like go for decks or make deck profiles of decks that I tend to enjoy playing, and a lot of them have kind of been almost the exact same, especially because of the fact that blue and white are kind of needed in a lot of decks. So the originality of mixing certain colors and certain archetypes or whatever, like, or traits at this point is, it's okay. But like for example, like wing can only exist in green with something else. So it's like you only have like three other choices to do it. But in this case, we are looking at a really, this honestly, I'm kind of surprised it never came up in my mind to try this. But this is a red blue deck that isn't specifically Cyber New Type. Uh, this deck is actually crazy. And I'm actually just a heads up for everybody that's watching this now. I am pre-recording this, and I will be releasing it on the day of my new type event. So I don't know how this deck went. If I got first place, if not, or whatever, I'm still posting it regardless, because this deck is honestly really insane. So I wanted people to see how crazy this deck is. But yeah, no. My friend basically saw a few people, especially in the EU, I believe he said, that actually used this build and actually topped their new type event with it, or won it, honestly, in one or two cases. So it's kind of crazy that this deck is kind of so super low key, because it is actually legit more efficient than One Year War Rush, and it's also more efficient than the blue green Shenlong Breach or Federation deck. So it's kind of crazy that I never noticed how the synergy of these two pilots and their two units actually work really well in tandem. And of course, this deck being about like 80%, no, actually, yeah, about like 85, 90% just Earth Federation cards. I was already on board of it because of the fact that it had the gym and it had the Jiggin. So I was already really hyped to try this out. But yeah, let's actually get into the deck profile so you actually can see. We have no level 1 drops. We have specifically the level 2 drops, which are 4 gyms, because gym is just solid. It's a level 2, 1 cost drop. It's a 2-2, so it's still really solid, just as good as the new Zaku 2 from set 1. Then we run 4 of the gun tanks, because it's also a 1 cost drop. It is a little bit weaker at 1-2, but it does do 1 damage to anything that's rested. So you can actually ping them and knock out units that are already hurt. In my case, I always draw double gun tank. So I go, okay, you guys 2 health, double gun tank shot, and I knock them out. It's kind of become a meme for me, especially because I always somehow draw into 2 of this. So yeah. Then we run 3 Jins. Also another 2-1 drop. The fact that it's a 2-2 unit and it is red, so we do have access. So this is already a ton of 1 cost units. As you can see, we're already up to 11. Then we run the last ones, which are 3 Zaku Mariners. We're basically running 14 1 cost drops, but it would actually be 18 of them, including the level 3 that I'm about to show you guys. This is just insane. The amount of 1 drops in this reminds me a lot of the Digimon deck, specifically the Digipolice and D Brigade, where they would just play guys for super dirt cheap and pass turn to your opponent for almost nothing. And I feel this deck feels a lot like that, but in a different sense, because you're just dropping so many 1 cost units that you're kind of overwhelming your opponent. In a lot of my test games, I managed to basically get 6 units out on like turn 4, especially if they didn't manage to get rid of my board, or they decided to just go in and swing as hard as possible as well, just like I would. But the fact that they allowed 6 units is kind of insane. But the deck can consistently do that, which is really weird, but makes sense because of the fact that it's running 14 1 cost drops. For level threes, this is the one I was talking about. We run four Jiggins because this guy is just really crazy dumb, especially with the fact that, as you can see, we're running there. We have more Federation units, but I would say about 80% of our deck is our Federation. So this card is really easy to set off on level 3. And the fact that it becomes a 1 cost is really strong because it's a 2/3. But with the Gundam, it also boosts it up to 3/3. So it can basically help like clear out a lot of units. But also the fact is that it's just a super cheap cost. And if you have two of these in hand and you have two Earth Federations and you have enough resources, you can slap down two of these, which is really crazy. So you got to run four of this because your deck is all Federation. You will always get this effect off. The only non-Federation stuff we have is mainly the red cards. So not too bad. Then, of course, this being an Earth Federation deck, you have to run the four Rizels because Rizel is literally one of the best level 3 cards. The fact that it's a 4/3 on drop is so strong. And, of course, being Earth Federation, works with the Jigen, works with everybody else here, so pretty cool. Then this is the other card that I mentioned that is not a Federation. We run four Aegis Gundam MA mode specifically because of the fact that it can breach 3. But if linked with Atherin, you make it a 4/6. So you're basically able to take out anything low cost from like level 3 or below and survive the hits every single time. And of course, you're going to breach 3. So if you target their Zaku 2, you're going to breach and knock out their base or knock out a shield. So, and you'll survive in the process. So it's just really strong. You have to run 4 copies of this. This card is honestly what makes this deck like so strong against other rush decks, but also against a lot of other control decks. Against like red white, it does pretty good. It does pretty good into blue white as well. It also does really well in really well into wing because wing just cannot stop this because on turn 5 if they're not on the EX, they're not gonna be able to do anything. You can already basically clap them for a game at that point, and you should be finishing it off at turn 6 because at that point wing kind of ramps up and starts doing damage to you. But even then, if they don't get to level 8 as soon as possible, they basically lose the game against this deck. Then, of course, for the other level 4, this being Federation, we are running 4 Vanilla Gundams. This card is actually kind of goated because of the fact that it's a 2-cost Gundam, but also with Armor, you can rest something and you make this a 5/5. So if they don't address it, they basically have their bases knocked out almost every turn consistently. And then we run 3 of the Gundam from the starter. This one is still really strong. The fact that it boosts all your units on the board when it's paired is really strong because you can actually boost the MA mode up to 5, so it becomes a 5/6. It turns all of these into like 3/2s, which is really strong, except for the gun tank. It becomes a 2/2, but even then, everything becomes really buffed. And of course, the fact that it has repair 2, so it can knock out small units that are rested, and then you get to basically just benefit off that, and of course have this really chunky body that they have to get rid of. If not, they basically lose bases every turn. Then for the last unit of the deck, we run 3 Angsha because Angsha is just there. It's basically a higher level gun tank for you, but also the fact that it's a 3/3, so it does help you knock out small units without trading as well. So pretty good. You gotta run this because it also does 1 damage. Same as gun tank, it does the 1 damage to anything rested. I actually did have a match where I dropped double Angsha, and that actually knocked out an Ale Strike, so that's actually pretty strong. Then, of course, for pilots, we are, of course, running the 4 Atherin. I honestly, like, I'm not a huge fan of Seed, but this card is honestly cranked, or just cracked in general. The fact that, for anybody that does not know what Atherin does at this point, especially with the deck being out for, like, what, 4 or 5 months at this point? Or not, sorry, for 2 months so far. His effect is really cool. First off, he gets burst. When linked during this turn, this unit may choose an active enemy unit that's level 5 or lower. So basically, anything level 5 and lower, you can make the MA mode basically swing through. So you survive the battle, and at the same time, you knock out a small unit. So you're gaining breach in the process. So you're guaranteed to knock out a unit, hit a shield, and knock out a base at the same time if you really or a base. So having him at 4 is really crucial. Then, of course, this being a Air Federation deck, we have to run the 4 Armoros because Armoro is literally one of the best pilots currently. He rests any enemy unit with 5 or less HP, which covers a decent amount of everything. And of course, if you're talking about anything that's damaged or whatever, this also knocks it down. So pretty strong. And of course, giving a 2-1 boost means that this Gundam will become a 5-5. Same with this one. On any other unit, it's going to boost it up to at least 4. So pretty strong. Gotta run 4 copies of this. Then, of course, we run 3 Show Resolve. This being a red-blue deck, you absolutely need these cards specifically for draw power, especially if you end up using up most of your hand. You need this to recover and get back cards. I usually only use it in certain instances, like when I know my opponent only has like maybe 1 or 2 cards left in hand, I will play this out because I know they'll only have 3 cards next turn, so there's only a certain amount of plays they can do with that. So even then, they're wasting their entire hand, and I'm not, so usually out-resourcing them is always a good option. Then, of course, for bases, we only run 1, and that's the Corsica base. Corsica base is basically just there to put more aggro, especially on the second or late game or mid game specifically, because they usually should have hit at least one of these bases. And if you play this out and you already have one in the trash, you get to summon 2 Leos, which potentially can put them on a time limit, because if you have a full board of 6 guys and they only have 1 shield, they have to address your board, and if not, you basically win the game. Yeah, it's basically the deck. This deck is honestly kind of weird. Like, looking at it, like right now, you're looking at it, you think it's just your typical rush deck. But funny thing is that while talking to my friend, shout out to Isaac, his theory specifically that I'm citing at this point is that the fact that both kind of just aggro in general, it's mainly because of these 2 pilots and their units, is that they're always aggroing in some capacity. Like, Afrin is always breaching through something alongside his Aegis Gundam, and along with Armoro, he's always resting a unit and swinging and or repairing or knocking something out, so you're always guaranteed a trade with them, especially when they're linked. And the fact that both of their aggros kind of just like synergize together at that right point, that it basically it's like a continuous like pressure of like the best way to describe it, like how I'm describing it, it's like 2 tectonic plates, and then they just kind of like link together, and then it just creates that amount of pressure that just like takes out your opponent like every single time. Because every single test I've done with this deck, it's basically gotten me a game by turn 5 or 6. And if my opponent doesn't address the giant board that I leave on turn 5 or 6, they basically lose the game, which is insane. Like, you would think just by looking at it, it doesn't look good. It just looks like blue-green, or it looks like the blue-white tempo where it has aggro or whatever, and then it has like these other units that kind of do damage. Or recently we've been seeing blue-white rush, where it just basically has Ale Strike as like its top end. Like, it's good, but at the same time, it's like they have to deal still with consistency issues. They have to deal with certain things that might pop up, like what if you break into only pilots. In this case, you run 8 pilots, but even then, there is a potential for it. But I have only had it. Maybe I don't even really think I've had like a bad issue of it. There was one game where I just drew 2 Armors and 2 Gundams, but at the same time after that, I drew into a Jim and a Jin. So surprisingly, I just kind of did some aggro. Then turn 4, I just kind of went in and I did the damage, and I rested their blocker and knocked them out using my small unit, because it was already hurt from a previous turn. So it's pretty crazy. And you would think like running 4 Jiggins, it'd be like, dude, that's like a 3-2 cost. But the thing is, if you already laid out the Jim and the gun tank, but you have this in hand, you can actually set it up so that next turn you're just like, oh cool, and then you do this with a Roselle, and you're like, okay, I'll swing both of these. I don't care if they die, because then Jiggin and Roselle will start doing damage or knock out a base again or another shield. So really cool. And then if you have this and Arthur, you're just golden, because you just go, okay, I'm just going to play down small units, and then level 4, bam, this guy's coming out. He's knocking out your small unit. You can't aggro me anymore, and I still take out, and I still chunk the damage and do a breach at the same time. That's just crazy. The fact that this deck now has breach without having to resort to either Shenlong or Wu Fei is actually kind of crazy, because originally I thought that was the only way for like Rush to actually breach. And the only problem with it is that it's just the fact that it's a 4-2 drop. I know that this is a 4-3 drop, but the fact that it can attack active units is also really crucial, because with Wu Fei's Shenlong, it's kind of weird, because with the lower level 4, he only has Breach, and it's kind of a vanilla card. But the only way to get more benefit is to wait until level 5 when you can play the level 5 Shenlong, which kills a blocker and can prevent itself from taking damage. But in this case, you just kind of skip all of those steps and just go, okay, I'm just going to swing in. I'll take the damage, whatever. I'll do Breach 3. Oh, wait, I can also attack active units. That's insane. Because that's essentially having like a weaker version of Wing like on turn 4, while comparing it to like Wing in the Wing Zero deck and stuff, you have to wait until turn 6 to even be able to do that. While this one is level 4 and you can breach too. I mean, it's not a good breach, but early game, you knock out their base and then you just start swinging with all your small guys with this guy alongside them. It's really insane how powerful that is. And not only that, is that then if they kill it, they're like, okay, they had to waste effort because it's a 6 HP unit. And then you go, okay, next turn, I'm just going to slap down like 4 units on you. What are you going to do? And it's like at that point they literally have to address your board, and if they don't, they lose the game. So in that instance, you're like you are in such a huge advantage, and most of the time you should have done that without even like in almost every game. I don't think I've actually had a time where I ran out of cards in hand. I would actually hold back on certain plays, and that actually did benefit because of not only the show of resolve, but also the fact is that um, playing down these bases honestly does not hurt. Like on turn 3, if you have 2 units and then you go, oh cool, I'll play the Corsica base and get a Toggies, it's honestly not that bad because you get that extra card. And then you go on turn 4, you go into this or you go into Gundam and you just kind of just start kind of dealing with their board. And at the same time, if you get this, as I said, you just breach through. This deck has a lot of depth to it. It looks really dirt simple. Like I keep saying that, but I just want people to get that it looks dirt simple, but it's actually really crazy. Like you would think a rush deck is just like, oh cool, turn sideways, no brain move, but like this deck actually kind of reminds me a lot of Cyber newtype Ping because it does require you to kind of like think about your plays a little bit more. So it is a little bit more like slightly controlly than a normal rush deck, but the fact is that it's still able to do the rush while doing that without having like, see, that's the issue I have with Cyber newtype that I'm still working on, is the ability to pivot to control. This deck doesn't really pivot. It just does it by default. It's always controlling their board because you want to be breaching. You want to be just going in and doing damage. You want to be resting their units. You're already doing it by default rather than just hoping you do it later and having to pivot. You just do it. And it simplifies the idea of controlling with red blue, but at the same time, it's still a rush deck. So I think, honestly, just thinking about it, just thinking about this deck, I would, as I mentioned, the matchups are pretty solid. I think the only honestly bad matchup this deck would have, it would depend because against like Wing or whatever or Blue White, they would have to get a very very specific combo with their blocker, like with a pilot, to make this really tough. But most of the time, they're not going to be. Most players I've seen don't really do anything super super crazy. So I think against like a typical blue white blocker deck, even a unicorn, I think you should have a decent matchup because of the MA mode. Like people, honestly, people really really sleep on this card. Like people think, oh, it's just a Zaf card. It's only good in Zaf. No, it's actually really powerful. Like I remember reading this card and being like, oh, this is actually kind of crazy. And then funny thing is that one of my friends actually, like I just recently met him, like he actually clapped me with this card using just the normal starter, and I was like, damn, why is that card so broken? Like it's a 4/6 on turn 4. That's insane. Like it outstrips like the Gundam in a way because of the fact that it's just so chunky. And I'm like, man, that's kind of crazy. Like, is there a way to utilize this? And I've just never thought of it until now. Until like my friend was like, hey, did you see this like idea that somebody put out? I was like, no. And it's like it's really crazy how good this works together with armor. Like you would think, oh, you need Shenlong, you need Wu Fei, you need blue green so you can like run the Zaku's. Nah, we don't need no Zaku's in here. We need, well, technically we have one Zaku. It's the Zaku Mariner, but I'm talking about green Zaku's. We don't need no green Zaku's in here. We just have the Jin, the Zaku Mariner, and almost like every other good Earth Federation card in here. So pretty good. I like the idea of this deck, and I wanted to put it out so that you guys can kind of get a sense of it. And try it out. Please try it out. This deck is insane, and I want this deck to start doing damage because I'm honestly, and I'm gonna say this again, I am honestly tired of all like the top 3 decks at this point. I'm tired of Wing Ramp. I'm tired of blue white blockers and or blue white unicorn. I'm tired of seeing blue green rush or red green Xeon. I want to see something new, and this is something new, and it's really fun and really powerful. So I want people to try this out and change the meta for me, please, for the love of God, please. I know we're only in set 1, but goddamn, it is getting slightly boring out here. So we need some spice, okay? That'll be the title. We need some spice, okay? Anyway, I'll see you guys next time.